everyone. Welcome to another episode of Rebecca and Rebecca. My name is Rebecca Yager, coming to you from steamy Dallas, Texas. My partner in books is Rebecca Reed in rural Indiana. How are you, Rebecca?
I'm good, and it's not as hot right now here. So we're in a sort of a nice, mild, it's been 78, 80, so it's been great. Yeah.
Yeah, I think KyLee and I would both be jealous of that as being in Texas in summer. And speaking of KyLee, it is our favorite day today. We love interviewing authors and talking to authors, and today is the lovely and talented KyLee Woodley from Central Texas. Hi, KyLee.
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on the show.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad you're here.
All right. Well, I'm gonna tell folks a little about you, so I'm gonna read your bio, just straight off, and then we'll get started, and we'll talk about the bounty hunter's surrender and all kinds of fun things about your books. Okay. So,
Wonderful.
all right. Kylie Woodley is a cheery romantic who loves to write about bygone days and heartwarming romance with a pinch of adventure. She teaches preschool at a lab in Texas where she lives with her husband of 18 years and their three teenage children. Now, Kylie, you don't look old enough to have teenage children.
That's right. I have a senior this year. I'm just so excited. We just met with her counselor and got a plan for the year. So yeah, three teenagers. Oh my goodness, all high
Wow.
schoolers too.
That's great. Well, on weekends, Kylie hosts and produces the Historical Bookworm Show, so y'all need to check that out. A steadily growing author interview podcast for history lovers and readers of historical fiction. Oh, we're going to have to talk about that. In her spare
Mm.
time, she cares for a rescue mutt, Lucky Dog, a feisty feline named Hazel, and three adorable Boston Terrier puppies. She listens to Cricket Country and Caleb Radio, reads classic books with her children, and watches Marvel movies with her husband, who might resemble Superman. And I
He
love that you
does.
consider your husband Superman. Don't we all? So we should. Well, welcome. All right. Well, I'm going to just dive into the podcast because we like sharing about podcasts, and anytime we can direct readers to somewhere where they can learn more about books or learn more about authors, I think it's great. So what is the
Agreed.
name of the podcast?
Well, it's the Historical Bookworm Show. We are going into, I believe, our fifth year now. My co-host and I, Darcy Fournier. So, yeah, we regularly have on authors of basically, we hope, the some of your favorite inspirational historical fiction. We just had talked with Jane Kirkpatrick and
Mhm.
Lorraine Snelling, Karen Whittemire, Mary Connealy, Tracy Peterson, Grace Hitchcock and Rosanna M. White, and just we try to keep a variety, but yeah, so we'll have them on, talk about their books. Darcy and I love history, and so we focus a little bit more on the history, and then we have a fantastic reviewer, Miss Angela Bell. She recently had the book published. I believe it's the Ladies' Guide for Marvels and Misadventures. She just writes the most beautiful, compelling reviews, and so we're able to share those as well.
Well, that sounds lovely. I mean, I would like that. I like all of that stuff. Everything you said sounds great.
Yay!
Is there a website for your podcast where people can find you? Real quick.
Historicalbookworm.com.
That's too easy.
So easy.
Historicalbookworm.com. Anybody who loves the history genre, go check it out while you're checking us out too. So, you can
Yes.
divide your attention. Yeah. No competition here. Now, we don't believe in competition. We just want to share, right?
We are all about
So,
collaboration.
that's right. That's right. So, um, yeah, I love that at one time you kind of wanted to be in performing arts between being a ballerina, possibly, or um, or a singer. Do you sing at all?
I do sing now. I don't read music, but I love music. I love to sing. The whole ballerina thing, I was very young. It's really not remotely reasonable as I got older and realized that I have no rhythm or coordination. But at one point in time, I think every little girl either dreams of being a ballerina or a princess. And so somehow I landed on ballerina.
No, that's about right for most little girls, I
I
think.
mean, they still wear
So,
tiaras. It's close, right? It's
oh,
close.
yeah. Yeah, totally.
That's it. Well, how did you discover you wanted to be a writer then? How did you finally shift and find your path here?
So, professionally speaking, like my full-time job is actually preschool teacher, for Baylor University. They have a lab school. That's where I work, and so a lot of my time is spent there. I never dreamed that I would be a writer. Some people say they're a born writer. I never felt that way. Always loved a story. I was not a very good reader, as you know, just growing up and being in school, not a very good student. And when I was about 23, I had all three of my kiddos. I would every now I was always good at dreaming, daydreaming and dreaming up stories. And so at one point in time, I had traveled. I was living in Texas. I went to Oregon to see my family. I love history, and just to kind of research this small little farming town. And when I came back home, I was just obsessed. And I just had this burning story that would not get out of my head. It kept me up at night. And I started just typing. Just the most, not pretty narrative, I'm sure. Head hopping and all breaking all the rules. And just I got it out. And, that just really awakened I already always had the love of story and imagination, but I was like, I can actually there's a process here. I can do this. And then I heard about ACFW, sent something in for a contest, found out I was a even worse writer than I ever thought. But whoever critiqued my work and judged it and gave me atrociously low scores, sent me a list of resources and books on craft that I could read. And so after I cried for a couple days and got myself up off the floor, I got that list. And that was really empowering because I found that I could improve my craft.
You can't,
I think
and
I was gonna
that's,
say that's a very common story.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
basically what I did too. I wrote a story and I sent it in and I got all the information things I didn't have a clue were even a thing. Like you
Yeah.
said, you mentioned head hopping. I was really good at that.
Me
I
too.
think I had like 5 or 6 flashbacks, in the first 3 chapters. It was really bad. But those contests, you're right. I think being brave enough to actually submit your work. I guess sometimes when you don't know how bad you are, it's not really as brave. The first one, it's the second one,
So
right? That you
true.
have to be like, oh no,
Yeah.
do I want to put myself through this again? But the feedback is so beneficial, and the judges are very good about like
Very
giving
kind.
you the information that you need to improve, and I think that's fantastic. And ACFW has an amazing bunch of judges that volunteer their time to do that, and it's so beneficial and so important for beginning writers to take that chance. And because I think a lot of people, they're terrified of letting anybody read their work, let alone entering it in a contest.
Yeah.
And it's so important to do that. So thanks for sharing that.
Mhm. That's that's really great. Okay, so you are a teacher, and so is Rebecca, by the way. So with your schedule, and again with teenage children too, and now your oldest and a senior this year, that's going to be a busy year. All that, how do you balance writing and your work and your family? Do you have a particular writing schedule or?
I do not. I think that there's probably some pattern in my sporadic writing sessions. Most of them align with holidays that
Mhm.
where I have off work. I also have learned to kind of divide my time up and utilize that in the most effective way. So I like to write for long periods of time where I'm just fully immersed in the story and the characters and I can't just go and write like 200 words a day without completely losing the grasp of that story world and that character and what they're going through. And so I tend to write for long periods of time when I'm just drafting, and I'm typically almost always editing something because I can edit in small batches. I can even
Mm.
have like I have Word on my phone, and Word has the read aloud app within built in within the framework, and so I can just listen to that while I'm doing the dishes or driving. I have to be careful with that though, because it's very hard when you find something that needs to be corrected. You want to stop like right away. So I try not to do that. And just for me too, reading is a part of writing. I've
Mhm.
noticed that when I'm on a deadline and I have to produce a lot in a short amount of time, my creative well tends to run dry. And so having an audiobook, something creative from someone else, playing really helps to fill that creative well and help me not to get burnt out and overwhelmed. And so yeah, pretty sporadic. I try to be mindful of my plate and what's on it and balance that and use tools like lists and schedules to 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 keep me from losing track of everything. So it's a balancing act, and much like I was never called to be a ballerina, sometimes I feel just as clumsy in scheduling. Um, but yeah, somehow I get through.
Yeah, I'm a list maker as well. It seems like if I have a lot to do, taking that little bit of time to write down all the things that I really do need to do helps me process,
Mhm.
which ones are most important and how to kind of organize that. And I can and there's just that sense of accomplishment when you get to cross it off or check it off. I've got lists like that right now because we go back to school Wednesday tomorrow or 2 days from now. So, of course, we're recording this early. This will be in September.
No,
No,
this is
this
August.
is
This is this
August. Oh
month.
yeah, it is
Yeah,
August. Yeah,
this is this month.
we usually record a lot earlier than this, so it's very close to
Oh,
our
right on
actual
time here. Woohoo.
schedule. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, so I understand, when things get kind of in the crunch time. Now I don't have children at home. I just have a dog. So, and a husband. So, it's a little easier, although I would say they are both very demanding sometimes too. Not in a bad way, just, there's always something, right? No matter what. But yeah, that's awesome. I think it's great. And it's interesting to hear, because some authors can do that. They write like 100 words, 200 words. I can do that. I do that. But I do notice,
Can't.
like you said, that continuity piece. Sometimes I'll be like, I already said that. And when I'm reading back through it, I'll be like, wait, I just repeated what I did, 2 times ago or something. And so that's an issue. And it does require, I think, more editing when you do it that way. So
Hmm.
I prefer what you're talking about to write in long sessions. It works way better, but I guess we write when we can.
Mm.
So I think it's great though that you have all those other little tips and tricks to kind of keep yourself busy on the story, whatever section of that, you're looking at. So that's great.
It is true. And I'm glad you said that as for other writers, because I've always heard, well, write where you can. I can sit there in the carpool lane and, tap out a few words. And I'm like, uh-uh.
No,
So, Kylie, it's nice to meet someone who likes the larger chunks of time where you can focus in on your story a little better and stuff.
definitely.
Well, I guess we should talk a little bit about The Bounty Hunter's Surrender, and that is book two in the series. And forgive me, I just blanked on the series name.
The Outlaw Hearts series.
Outlaw Hearts series. And this is book two, like we said. And as a historical writer, I'm gathering research can probably lead you down a rabbit trail at times, but does the research inspire your stories or add to the stories or
Very, very much so. I've noticed that research tends to turn into a rabbit trail when I am procrastinating or have writer's block, where I don't feel confident moving forward in the story and I don't know why. Maybe it's something else I haven't worked out, like character wise. I don't know my character well enough. And so I can always tell I'm like, okay, I'm getting really far down here. I need to focus. how that being said, oh my goodness, research is inspires for me so many characters and scenes, and if I'm like just staring at a blank page and not sure where to take the story, I can always turn to research, and usually whatever the time and place and look, I mean, just reading old newspapers from like, something that my heroine might pick up and read. It just fires my imagination, and yeah, I love including historical information so that people who read the book have that to look at, and it's just amazing what you find.
Mhm.
Is it sometimes do you find things that you think if I wrote this, no one would believe it actually happened?
Definitely. Definitely, especially with some of our, we just have an idea of the way things were, and we like, oh, she'd never do that, or oh, he'd never do that, because that wasn't appropriate then, or women didn't do that then. But if you read widely, and especially and look at how big our nation was at that time, because by the time the West was settled, that's typically where I'm writing. There were, just some things that were done differently. Not to mention, we had people pouring in from different countries with different ideologies, religions, beliefs and moral systems, so to speak. Um, and so, yeah, I would never want to just be like, assume that oh, we would do it this way and that's it. But you
Mhm.
have to have, but there are some social norms like you can't just ignore some things like it has to be like justifiable. And I think just as writers that we try to be very intentional about that. And not just like, oh, well, I want her to say such and such and that doesn't really align, but I'm going to take creative license. Well,
Mhm.
no, I think that if you are going to include something in your story where your reader's going to be like, that's would they really do that back then? You'd have a really good reason to do that and some like just fascinating, engaging, um, you know, historical content to support that.
Mm.
Okay, I have one question, and I hope I don't put you on the spot with this,
Oh,
but I wanted to kind of at the language of the day and using the word pregnant, and I didn't think they would use pregnant. They would say with child or something like
mm-hmm.
that, but you used the word pregnant in your book, so I'm presuming at some point that came into the language of the day.
You're really calling me out,
I'm sorry.
Becky.
Okay, I'll edit this out.
No, no,
But it
you're
was
good.
something that struck
Um,
me, and you just made a good point about we think things are a certain way. So now you got me curious.
Yeah, actually, and I'm appalled to say this, and also inviting any listeners who love history to chime in here. I'm not really sure.
Ah,
And I'm also not sure if I used pregnant within on the book cover itself or within, but I believe I probably did use it in book two in that in the narrative. But that's a good point. I would have to
that's
research that.
and I I apologize. I don't mean to ever put you on the spot or make you
Oh,
feel,
you
but
are
it is
totally
something
fine.
that it was interesting. It kind of struck me. So yeah, I'd love some feedback on this. And
Yes, listeners. So would they use with child or pregnant, expecting in a family way?
there you go.
Yeah. And
Okay.
anyone who like our listeners who are true history lovers, if you have a link or a quote, oh, I would love to see that in the comments.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
would
that would
love
be
to too.
great. We use so many words
Hmm.
that we don't think about when they actually did come into being
Hmm.
commonly used. And there's no way that anybody could research every single word. Like, there's no way. So, I mean, nothing about that at all because it would be impossible. But it is interesting, because some phrases too that we use currently weren't used until, more modern times, but you,
Hmm.
you you wonder like were they in the 60s? Were they the 70s? Because even in contemporary stories, sometimes you have to really worry about like what phrases were used. Would this character say this particular thing?
Hmm.
And that kind of research is kind of tedious sometimes, I think, to find that information. And I guess it's something that maybe a reader wouldn't necessarily think about, um, how much, you have to kind of worry about that kind of stuff. And you think, oh, you're just going to write the book, right? You're just going to put the words down, and that's not quite how it goes.
Mhm.
Um, and
Readers need to show a little grace to the authors too, because trust me, I
yeah,
know, KyLee, you're doing your best with research. And in fact, you found what helped in the writing of this story when you discovered the foundling asylum as part of your research. Did that change the direction of what you were writing?
Could you repeat that, please? I'm sorry, my stuff froze up for a minute.
That's all right. I was talking about your research and when you discovered the information about the foundling asylum. Um,
Oh, my goodness. That was a tough one. I have a whole like historical note on that in the back of the book. My first draft did not include it. Felicity, Nathan's little niece, was actually just with a family, and looking at ways that I needed to really up those stakes. I started researching orphanages and found out about the San Francisco Foundling Asylum and Laying In Hospital. And I had to be delicate, just handle that very carefully within the narrative, because the historical facts are rather like a horror movie. Not maybe not horror, but it was very sad. And so I tried to find. I think wherever there's darkness, there's light.
mhm,
And I always try and find that in the historical research that I do, and find the people who did make a difference, and include that in the notes and then in the way that I present that within the narrative. But in history, you don't always get the happily ever after,
mhm,
that happy ending. And so that was definitely the case with the San Francisco Foundling Asylum. And so glad that, Felicity, was able to come out of there,
yeah.
and yeah, it was some really interesting research though.
I
I
bet
thought
it
you handled
was.
it very well. I
Yeah.
mean, it was obviously for Nathan, it was a huge motivational piece of
Mhm.
his character arc and why he was working so hard um, to find a way, to take care of her.
Mhm.
And but how hard would it have been, for a single man back then to have
Mm.
taken care of an infant? I mean, it's the ideas were different.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, very hard, if not impossible. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
him having to work and then just having the not having the physical ability to care
Mhm.
for her needs, which is why,
Right.
he needed a nurse and, a number of other things. And yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, well, you did put a nurse in the asylum that was very caring and
Yes.
very who did
Yes.
take good care of Felicity. So you did soften it because there were, as you know, in the midst of all this horror, as you said, or the
Mm-hmm.
tough times, hopefully there were a few good nuggets, that light, like you talk about, that were caring. Mm.
Yes.
I love that you included that. All right, well, we got to talk a little bit about villains, and
No.
that's Aubrey's mother-in-law. Come on, mothers-in-law already get a bad rap. Now I'm graced with a fabulous one, thankfully, but,
Oh, that's
but
so great.
she was goodness, really two-faced.
Yes, and this probably sounds silly. I personally really have a soft spot for Madame. That's kind of what she goes by.
Mm,
She just, I think I understand like a lot of her hurts and the reasons behind what she's doing. But I'd also say that she's not healthy. And I hope that throughout the story, it's very obvious that Aubrey, while trying to be respectful and honorable,
mhm,
realizes even before the climax at the end when the mother-in-law's really outrageous. But even before that, like, this is not healthy. This is not good for me when someone says these things to me, and behaves in these ways. And I feel this way. but it's only around this person. And as Aubrey's recovering from, her the abusive relationship that she had been in previously, she's kind of identifying these things. And unfortunately, the mother-in-law in this instance had many of the characteristics that her husband had had.
Mhm.
And so he's gone, but this is an opportunity for her to face those things like in real time for her. And then also, I mean, I hope that I showed her trying to be compassionate without, there's always that line. I know that I, as a reader, if there's a main character and they just take it and take it and take it,
Mm.
eventually I'm just like, girl, this is not healthy. And if you got down and prayed, you would see that and you would stand up for yourself. So I
Mhm.
hope that I did balance that out because I have a lot of respect for our mothers, our mother-in-laws, our um, the the women that God places in our lives who are, older in the faith or just, have lived more life. Anyone who respects history, I think, can respect the people around us who are a part of that. And so while Madame is cruel and very unhappy. Um, I honestly I wish that there was a redemption arc for her. I do think that her husband loves her very much, and in the end, I hope that I showed that.
Mhm.
I really just felt bad for them when they well, I don't want to give away any
Yep,
spoilers,
no
but I
spoilers.
I did. I felt bad for both of them, and strangely enough, in researching my genealogy, my some of my ancestors come from Lorraine and were there during the Franco-Prussian War and the areas that were annexed, and just having that struggle, and so it was yeah, I have a soft spot for the villain. The book two, there are actually two villains, and don't want to say too much about that. But Madame is, uh, if she was alive, I would just be praying for her.
Yes, I think you did a great job with Aubrey. I think Aubrey is always tries very, very hard to be respectful up until that point where she just can't anymore. And I think there is you can definitely see that line. Like she's trying really hard because that's what she's been taught. She's been raised well. She's been raised to respect older people, and people who are family members, and she's trying not to sever ties for her daughter. There's just all that she's trying really hard, and but like you said, at some point you can't have that unhealthiness.
Hmm.
You have to cut that off, and I thought she did a really good job, and um, you know, I could see, some of that. I felt a little bit sorry for Madame as well.
Oh, good.
I did. Because I could see that there was way more going on behind her manner than was obvious. I mean, the whole family was broken, really. That side of the family was very broken and very dark. They just had their motives were very skewed
Hmm.
by greed and just the need for, and some of it was justified. They had to have certain things in order to survive. And so people will do things maybe to survive, to keep going that they wouldn't necessarily do otherwise. And I think that's kind of where they were at. I don't not exactly sure, but that's what I kind of got out of it. Um, and I have a question about the French too. Do you
Yeah.
speak French, or was it,
Oh,
did you
not
have to
at
read?
all.
Oh, okay.
Not at all. I researched and I had an editor who knew more about French than I did, and I uh, definitely want to respect any culture. I'm kind of fascinated by France, and I think there's just everyone to some degree, at least that I know, has some of this romantic view of Paris and France. And yeah, I don't even know why. I think the research is what really led me to having the French influences. And because there's similar characters in all the books for the series, I think that's how it kind of they just
Mhm.
flowed in. I tried to make it flow naturally in a way that was respectful to, that culture
Oh, I
and the
thought it
time
was,
period.
I couldn't tell that you didn't speak French. I mean, I thought it was, I don't speak French a lot of French, but I speak Spanish, so it's similar enough that I could kind of, I could understand the basic things. And I thought it sounded, I mean, I'm not, like I said, I'm not a French anything, but I thought it was very natural. I thought you did a great job with inserting those little pieces. I thought it sounded very much more realistic, having those little tidbits, in there, and the culture and everything was really I'm fascinated by culture too, so I always love it when authors include the culture of their characters and you learn a little bit more about those things. And it was interesting. I didn't know the information that you included about the Franco-Prussian War either, some of that. So I thought that was really interesting as well to learn. I probably should have known it, but I didn't remember. So,
Not everyone does that. Someone actually left a review. They say that you should never read your reviews, but I do, and I just crack up because someone was like, if you like obscure French history that doesn't really matter, and I was like, oh, that is just such an appalling thing to say. Like, for me, finding like the bits of history that have been forgotten, that haven't been,
Mhm.
widely taught or publicized in our culture, I just think it's just a true gem
Yeah.
when I run
mhm.
across something like that. But yeah, the Franco-Prussian War, it was, I don't believe it lasted even a year. And there was a lot packed into that. And then, of course, France did not regain, Alsace and Lorraine until World War One or World War Two.
Mm,
So that conflict, really the Franco-Prussian War, the conflict that was there at the time, it did just carry on through the years, up until, the conflicts that, we're more familiar with the First and Second World War.
right.
Right. Well, I'm agree. I think we all do actually, as far as those little hidden gems that no
Oh
one
yeah.
heard
Mhm.
about, nobody knows. Those are our
Mhm.
favorite things. And
Mhm.
in all the historical novels that we've done a bunch of historicals this year, and they've all had some of that little tidbit that nobody knew about, and I love that. I think that's fantastic. And I think it's great that, because everybody writes about the big things,
Hmm.
and so I'm always fascinated by those tiny little things that, like you said, people forget, people didn't know, they're not taught because there's so much history to teach. They can't teach everything. And so I think it's great. I think those are the things that really enrich a historical novel, and yours is very rich in all of that. I thought it was very good as far as the culture, the history. It's just enough, not too much, sprinkled in there really well. So you did a great job.
Thank you.
All right. Well,
I was gonna say one more. I also liked the sibling connection between book one and book two. I thought you did a great job with that. And I thought the way you carried some of those characters through was very, very well done. And I enjoyed meeting like Bo and a few of those other people that came back through into the second novel. Because I read the first one thinking that was the one we were reviewing, and it wasn't.
Oh,
And then I read the second one. So I've read both of them. And they're both very, very good.
thank
So.
you.
that's
That's a
good.
lot of fun. I admire that when I read a series, when I can kind of revisit the friends I've
Mhm.
made from a previous book.
Mhm. That's it. Well, speaking of that, for book three, and you mentioned Bo, Bo gets his book, right?
He does, and I'm so excited for him. The Convict's Courtship will release in March, and the story has taken some turns that very much surprised me. My one of my writing partners, critique partners, Darcy, actually my co-host for the Historical Bookworm Show, she said, "I always love your villains. You have such a strong such and such the villain. Their story's so interesting." And when she said that, I was thinking about the villain for this particular book, and I was like, actually, this book has focused so much on more of the emotional journey. And if you know anything of Bo, and I think you see more. So in book one, Bo is really a minion of the villain and one of the villains. Wait, two,
Mhm.
yeah. And so in book two, I didn't want to give him his redemption story right away because some of the comments I got about him they were like, some people did not like him rightfully so. And so I wanted to give that book too, where you get just a little bit of a history and really see his self-sacrifice and that he is trying to live a better life, no matter how flawed that is. And so in book three, we learn so much more about his history, um, a little bit more about, what was happening in France as he was coming up, some things that really shocked me. And then our heroine is Jesse and Aubrey's cousin. And she's a little bit younger, and it says in the back cover copy, so I don't mind sharing. But the issue that she's dealing with internally, as far as like her faith in God, is that her mother died, and then her father married his mistress and started a family. And she was in finishing school for a number of years, and now she's come back to try and be a part of the family, and her bitterness is just really eating at her, and she doesn't trust men, and then Bo is has a secret identity and is a convict. So of course, when all that comes out, she really gets to test her faith in God and the wisdom that she's grown. So yeah, so that's what's next. I'm very excited. That'll wrap up the series as far as I know.
Okay.
Ooh,
Well,
maybe not, but coming out in
maybe.
March of 2026 then, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Well, we will look forward to that. I guess one odd question, you write historicals. Is there any other genre you'd like to try to write, or is your heart set where it is?
I I enjoy some fantasy with sort of some historical themes.
Mm.
Mm.
And so I have a fantasy novel in somewhere hidden away. I'm really focused on historical now, and that is really something that I love. It's my preference would be to write historical if I had to choose. But just the element of imagination, world building, um, and there are certain boundaries within historical fiction that are I personally respect and value. I noticed when I did write the fantasy, and having to create those things, and there was just a certain like freedom that I was able to do. I think some people are very imaginative and they just thrive within fantasy. I personally don't feel that way, which is probably why I rely on the historical content that excites me and brings these things to me. I don't know if I could write fantasy like long term. I work 40 hours a week and have three teenagers, and life can be distracting. But I do treasure fantasy.
Well, I love fantasy as well, and I have a couple fantasy books too that I've written, and I have one that's a historical, kind of historical minded one, but I'm not very good at historical, so I don't know if that one will ever show up anywhere ever, but I
Oh,
respect you historical writers so much,
Yeah.
the research and just how much you put into the backstory of these books, that might or might not ever even show up on the page. There's just so much work that you put into it, and I really admire that. I think being a historical writer and being is one of the most difficult things that you can be as an author. So kudos to you. You've done a great job. I think it's fantastic. Both of these books, highly recommend them. And the narrator was very good as well. I listened to the second one, read the
yeah.
first one, listened to the second one. I thought sh the narration was very good. So I'm more of an audiobook kind of person, so that was excellent for me. Um, and yeah, it's so exciting. I think Wild Heart Books, your publisher, is putting out some fantastic
Yeah.
stories and doing a great job. The covers are awesome too. So yeah, it's got it all, right? It's got it all.
Needless to say, I think Rebecca's a fan, as am I. All right, it's the Outlaw Hearts series. The first one was the Bandit's Redemption,
Mhm.
That's
and
right. The
then this
Bandit's
one
Redemption.
we talked about was the Bounty Hunter's Surrender. And book number three, Bo's book, is The Convict's.
courtship. A little more
Courtship.
emphasis on the romance there in the title than the outlaw theme, but that's okay.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
well, very good. Well, we'll look forward to the convict's courtship in March. Meanwhile, Kylie, how can people find you, your website, and things like that if they want to keep up?
My website is just my name, KyLee Woodley, and KyLee is Kyle, and but Woodley is Woodley. I'm gonna mix that up. And if you go to my website, I have a sign up option for my newsletter where you can also get a free short story. I know a lot of people give away novellas. I have a short story and it is related to, it's actually part of the Outlaw Hearts series.
Hmm.
It's the one generation up and it's called The Debutante's Revenge. It's
Awesome.
very cute and it's actually just about a lady from France who comes to America because a beau of hers from the past is marrying her cousin, and she's there to sabotage the wedding, but she finds a better reason to stay. So a lot of fun there. So also the podcast, historicalbookworm.com.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah. Check those out. Definitely. And put those comments in about pregnant versus with child. We want to hear about that. I'm
I do.
just
I
curious.
definitely do.
Yeah, I'm
Someone
interested in
help
that.
me out.
I
I
didn't
feel
I
like I'm
didn't even
stirring the pot here.
I didn't even
Sorry.
catch it. I didn't even catch
That
it.
was good.
So, to me, it didn't, I mean, it's definitely it's not a deal breaker for
Oh,
sure.
no,
It
no,
doesn't
gosh,
matter.
no.
But
Gosh,
I'm
no.
interested in what people, like you said, there's people out there who just they're so history minded and they check
Yeah.
out all these things. So I'd be interested to see what people say about that. And definitely check out the book, the podcast, check out get the short story, like and subscribe. Our information is at rebeccaandrebecca.com, and you can find that. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, wherever.
Wherever
And
we're around. So,
yeah,
no, again, you can go to our website at rebeccaandrebecca.com to find more information about us. We will have links to Kylie's information as well on our website, but it is kyliewoodley.com. And check out the Outlaw Hearts series wherever you find your books or audiobooks. And Kylie, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time and we'll look forward to seeing everyone next month. Take care.
bye.
Bye.